Three, two, one. Welcome to the Lightforge. This is ADWCTA.
This is Merps. We are inching closer and closer to the Witchwood expansion. Very excited. Let's talk about it. Let's just get right into it. I think we have quite a lot to talk about today.
Oh, we have a lot to talk about because this is the designated leaving the year of the Mammoth into year of the Raven conversation too. So, like, to be perfectly honest, there's not that much to talk about on Witchwood. Like, we could probably do Witchwood in less than half an hour. But we have, like, our prediction is that, because Blizzard's followed this before, once they start actually doing the card reveals, it will be less than 3 weeks before, before the expansion comes out, which means we only have 2 Lightforges to cover everything. And since we have more cards coming, I figure we would do the cards next week, more of the Witchwood stuff next week. And for this week, we'll talk about how to prepare you for the meta that's coming up. These are definite things that are going to happen. Again, we've been talking a lot of like, oh, look, 10.4 has changed so much. What do we really know about the meta? Blizzard can do anything they want, but some things Blizzard can't change. Like, if a card is leaving the meta, that will be impactful. Like, it doesn't really matter what Blizzard does. Blizzard can change how impactful it will be, but some cards are just so impactful that when it leaves the meta, the whole game changes. And sometimes a whole set of cards goes away or something, and like archetypes break down and, you know, all this stuff. So we'll talk a lot about that, but let's start with the Witchwood stuff that we do have, because we definitely want Witchwood to be in front of your minds. And again, some people may also want to hear stuff about 10.4 and what's been going on with that. I think we cover that in its entirety in the last Lightforge, so go listen to that one if you haven't yet for 10.4. We're not going to talk about 10.4 anymore until like the expansion is released, and then we're talking about the expansion. So 10.4 is what it is. It's good in many ways. It's bad in some ways. Blizzard fixed a lot of stuff. There's probably more stuff that they can tweak and fix, and they'll hopefully do that before Witchwood. And so we'll talk about that when that happens.
Yep.
Okay. So Witchwood.
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 All right. We talked about this a little bit when they first revealed the Witchwood 2 weeks ago. So 2 Lightforges ago, they revealed the general themes. And now we have a little bit more info on the themes that they have revealed. And those are Rush and Echo, right? These are two new keywords. And once again, Rush is just charge that can't go face. It can only hit minions. Echo is essentially you get to replay this card as many times as you want, only on the turn in which you play it. So when you play an Echo card, you get a ghostly image of, like, a ghostly version of that card in your hand, and you can play it again if you want, and you can play it as many times as you can, limited by mana. And after the turn is over, that's it. The card is done. But it turns a small card into a big card, and then there's, implications there. So those are two of the mechanics that they revealed, but they only revealed one card 2 weeks ago. So there was not much to talk about. And that card was the Militia Commander, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which was the warrior rare, the busted, broken warrior rare, 4 mana, 2/5 rush, battlecry gain +3 attack this turn. Essentially, on the turn in which it comes out, it is a 5/5 with initiative for 4 mana. That's insane. That's ridiculous. And we talked about that, so we don't have to go so much into it. But now we have a lot more reveals, especially in this past week, and we're able to sort of make some conclusions about these two keywords.
Yes, we can make. Okay, here's my conclusion about these keywords. My conclusion about these keywords is that they are, or Rush at least, is extremely, extremely overpowered. Like, I don't know what Blizzard was doing, because normally when Blizzard releases a keyword, you don't know how powerful it'll be because you don't know what the cost will be, right? You don't know if Blizzard is thinking of this as like a 1 mana cost, like a cost, or a 2 mana cost, which means if it's a 1 mana cost, for example, a 4 mana card would be like 3/3 or 3/4 or something, right? And then this ability takes up 1 mana. But if it's a 2 mana cost, then the ability takes up 2 mana, and a 4 mana card will only be a 2/2 or a 2/4. Or in the case of Rush, Blizzard seems to think it's worth like half a mana, apparently. Like,
Yeah.
what are the other ones? I don't even have them at the top of my head. But like, Militia Commander is a 4 mana 2/5. That's a 5/5 charger, or rusher, I should say, that reduces down to 2 attack after its first turn. That's stupidly overpowered, right?
Right. It's really good. Let's look at a couple more rush cards. One that was given to Hunter is Hunting Mastiff, which is it's a common. It's 2 mana, 2/1 beast with Echo and Rush. Both of the keywords. So this means that when you play it, it has immediate initiative. It just can't attack face, but you can play over and over again. So if you have 4 mana, you basically play 2 of these, or you can play 2 of these. If you have 6 mana, you can play 3 of these, and so on and so forth. So this is just a bluegill warrior that can't go face, which is important for Hunter, right? Like not being able to go face, but it can be a much bigger card than bluegill warrior typically can, and plus it has a beast tag, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's one of those insane cards. Like,
yeah,
I don't know. I'm trying to find, because we're being smarter about this than we were in the last expansion. We are going, like, literally we're following Blizzard step by step. Blizzard releases a card, we score a card. Blizzard releases a card, we score a card internally, because it was a really big rush towards the end last time between the card dump and the reveal, and we ended up, as you know, not even being able to do a card by card review because of that. And so to avoid that this time, to guarantee you a card by card reveal before this expansion, we're going really like quickly, really not quickly, but what do you call that, on top of things.
Oh, on top of things.
Really
sure.
On top of things with it. So we can tell you, like, I can actually probably reveal some of the scores. Let me see if the warrior one should be ready. Yeah. So the Militia Commander, I'll tell you right now, is a 143 by the current tier list. Of course, because of the expansion rotation, the resetter and all that, none of these scores are going to be the exact scores when the actual list comes. But if you're looking at the current tier list and you just want to plug this card into the current meta in the current tier list, it'd be a 143. And that's a lot. We haven't done Mastiff yet, but it will be even higher than this probably, I would think.
So part of the reason why, because we're sitting here, we're saying Rush is amazing, it's so good. Part of the reason why it's so good is because when Blizzard makes cards, they have an eye out towards Constructed, right? And right now, the power level of Constructed, like, where does the power level of Constructed decks come from? It doesn't come from singular sort of keywords. It comes from synergistic themes that players, like the 30 cards all together, like, make the deck more than just the individual cards added up, right? So whenever you have a sort of a keyword or something that is just good independently, and also that gives initiative, right? In Constructed, initiative is just, it's so plentiful. Every single deck has so much initiative, or if they don't have initiative from spells, they have an extreme amount of tempo, right? And everything is constructed really well. In Arena, its initiative is rare. Like, it's hard to get it, and it's hard to get good initiative.
That's why they used to have the spell bonus in the cards, and they still, like, may have a little bit of it. It's not 75% anymore. No one really knows what percent it is anymore. It's impossible to tell what percent it is anymore with the new drafting system. But there's, like, do see spells a little bit more than you see minions. And the Blizzard is doing that for that reason.
Yeah. So when they give something like Rush, when you look at Rush in Constructed, you're just like, I don't really fear this, right? Especially because what they want in Constructed is a good, and I don't know exactly how to determine good, but they want, like, a good game in which people, like, go back and forth, right? But without, like, killing each other that quickly.
Yeah.
They don't want the face hunters anymore. They don't want the face hunter. They don't want the tunnel trogs anymore, right? And then snowball into, like, just turn 4 lethals. So what they see here is, like, the ability to have all of these flashy fireworks, but people can't kill each other using these minions, which is great. Like, they like that, right? But in Arena, in which you just always need the board, like, this is just so overpowered. It's something in which cards, like, the power of cards in Constructed used to come from like them fitting together so well. And now you just have this independently strong mechanic that in Constructed is just like kind of whatever, or maybe not whatever. I mean, I'm not going to predict the Constructed meta, right? But in Arena, it's just like,
okay, these cards are good and Constructed, like they're broken in Arena. And you know what? Like, I will also this after we actually scored the like first rush card that we got, the Militia Commander, which really looked like it may break the game on paper, right? Like a 5/5 charger that becomes a 2 whatever, depending on the body that remains. After we scored it, ended up being a 146, which I'll be honest, like 146 is an insanely good card. I don't have on hand what compares to it, but like that's like Gastropod level, like a little higher than Gastropod, but still. The other way to look at it is Gastropod didn't actually break the game. This is just a Gastropod level card. This is not a Primordial Drake level card. Like, it's at the upper tier of not yet breaking the Arena game, even though it's all premium and really, really good, right? This is like in my zone of, I always say like any card below 75 or above 150 I don't like. Well, this isn't above 150. It's really freaking close, but it is not above 150. At least in the current meta, if it were plugged in, it would not be. So I don't know. We're looking at this, and Rush looks insanely powerful right now. But when you actually calculate, for example, the amount of times you have to play, say, a Militia Commander on 4 just as a 4-drop because you have nothing better to play, or you're charging something and like you need to deal that 5 damage, but it's just a 4 mana 5 damage that can't go through taunt because it's gonna die. Then and you factor in all those scenarios in together with its prime scenario, of course, which is it kills something, let's say Ascension, for example, and then leaves a body. And it'll only leave a 2/2 body. It's not like the world's best body that it's leaving out. Because one of the big deals about actually eating a minion on curve is that, like, let's say a Yeti eats a minion on curve, like a 4/4, it leaves behind a 4/1 body. That's 4 more damage to the next target unless you get rid of the Yeti. This is only 2 more. Like, when you factor all that in, it's not as ridiculous. But what it does do is, as Merps was saying, it gives you the control, right? This initiative is a real thing. And now, not only are there still cards, like if you're looking at this reveal chart that we have up on the video, you also have like other cards that have initiative. Your normal spells and weapons are still here. They're not cutting back on it. Just looking at Warrior, you have Warpath, which is deal 1 damage to all minions and Echo, so you can cast as many times as you want for 2 mana apiece. You have Woodcutter's Axe, the new Fiery War Axe, which is a 2 mana weapon that's only 2 damage, but it does have a Death Rattle that works with Rush if you have any Rush minions, to give a Rush minion +2/+1. So these initiative cards are still there, and they're just adding initiative to like what seems to be like a third of your like normal minions that are coming out with this expansion. And in Arena, like half your minions, because Arena's taking out the like even and odds thing.
Yeah. So, with this rush mechanic, we are potentially going to look at games in which it's going to get a little bit crazy, right? Mm-hmm. And your expectation of a response from your opponent can be significantly heightened. Now, we don't exactly know, right? Because a lot more cards are going to come out. We have no idea. We don't know what they're going to do.
We kind of know. This is way too powerful. It's way too consistent. We've seen way too many cards at this point.
And there's an offering bonus. Right. There's going to be an offering bonus.
We don't know what it is, but it's going to be an offering bonus. And remember, the card pool is also being reduced by like almost 300 cards.
Yeah, definitely. So you're going to be seeing a lot more ability from your opponent to respond to your stuff. You're going to be able to respond a lot more, and games will go back and forth a lot more quickly, right? And you're going to be able to limit each other's options just a little bit more. Yeah. So stuff that you plan on sticking are going to stick a lot less. But at the same time, you should also feel a little bit safer, right? Because you also have these rush cards. So there's going to be a lot of this back and forth on the board like we have always had in the history of Arena. It's just now it's a turn faster. Like a lot of times it's going to be a turn faster because you don't need to wait for that summoning sickness. You just like go in there with rush.
It's true. And if rush as a whole mechanic that's central to the next expansion doesn't highlight how stupid the spell and weapon bonus is, I don't know what does.
Yeah.
Like, Yeah, sure, spell and weapon bonus isn't plus 75% anymore. Well, I had a problem with the spell bonus even when it was first apparent. But, like, at this point, with the new systems, and now with literally a central mechanic of the next expansion being minions that basically functions as spells, like, why? Why are we still doing this? Just, your system is complex enough, Blizzard. Just simplify it where you can.
Yeah, yeah. But you want to talk about Echo for a little bit?
I want to go over a couple more rush cards.
Okay. All right.
Just because some of these are pretty cool, and we're talking in very simple terms, right? We talked about the Mystique and the Commander. Are there any other like simple rush cards that I haven't gone over? Because some of these get like very interesting and complicated. Okay, so here's like a simple rush card. Curse Castaway. It's a 6 mana 5/3 charger, which is a decent price for a charger, right? Like you look at
it's also a pirate.
Oh, it's also a pirate, fine. But you look at something like Reckless Rocketeer. That's like what, like 6 mana for a 5/2, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is 6 mana for a 5/3. It can't go face, of course, which is what Reckless Rocketeer does. But this has something that's a ridiculous ability, which is Death Rattle. Draw a combo card from your deck. So, assuming you have any combo cards in your deck remaining, you draw a card from this.
Right, and this is a great top deck, right?
Yeah.
Because you play this and you have 4 mana to play the combo card, and you know, the majority of combo cards are going to be 4 mana or below, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, you still have your Elven Minstrel, right? Mm-hmm. This into Elven Minstrel, suddenly you just replenished your hand.
Mm-hmm.
Really good. This into SI7 Agent, like once again, pretty freaking good as well. You do see the downside of this, like if you aren't able to rush anything on the board, that kind of sucks. But then you still have a 5/3 body, so you're okay. But yeah, this is just going to be a really good card. You can also look at it as sort of a Starfire, right? Mm-hmm. In a way, it is very analogous to a Starfire.
Yes, but without the reach.
Right, without the reach. And Starfire is quite a good card in Druid. Mm-hmm. So this is another one of those cards in which I look at it, I'm like, you know what, good design. And the fact that it draws a combo card is really good, right? Because also combo cards tend to be high quality as well. It's not just draw a minion, right? It's draw a combo card. So this is something with initiative or card draw, like something that is going to be really good on this turn.
Yep, and to give you an idea of just like how low value that Blizzard thinks Rush is, this is a legendary card. So yes, it's a legendary class card. Yes, it's probably going to be a little overpowered even by Blizzard standards. But Houndmaster Shaw, 4 mana 3/6. Your other minions have Rush.
Yeah, I wasn't going to mention it because it was legendary, but yeah, this card is insane.
What the hell?
Absolutely insane.
It's a well-statted 4 mana card, and it gives every other one of not your other beasts have Rush. Literally every other minion now has initiative.
If you play this as a hunter, first of all, it's the exact stat line that you want, right? Like, if this were like a 6/3, I'd be like, okay, this is like
just super premium, not broken.
Right. But because it's a 3/6, I'm like, how the hell do you take care of this, right? Because even if they just play like the 4/5, right, on turn 4, they can't really get rid of it. And on your next turn, like, you always have initiative. You always get to dictate trades, basically.
This is like Blizzard saying, look, it's Hunter. As long as you don't get hit face, we're okay. Like, that's all it is. It's such a constructed, centered design card. Which is fine. It's legendary, but like still, this is gonna be one of those stupid cards where your opponent plays in on turn 4, and you're like, I now lose the game no matter what I do, unless I happen to have some kind of removal that can actually remove 6 health in one turn. Like it's stupid.
This is part of the culmination of Blizzard trying to. How many expansions have they tried to make Control Hunter work for Constructed? I think it's like the past 2 years essentially. They've tried to make Control. Because they've seen what Face Hunter can do, and they're like, never again, right? Like, never, ever again. That was bad. We probably, made a lot of people quit. And it was just, like they hated it. So they're like, never again. And they have tried to make Control Hunter work over and over again. And this is just them being like, okay, we keep on raising the power level. Let's just, bump it up a notch more.
Yeah, and here's another legendary that's a very interesting card. Darius Crowley. 5 mana 4/4 Rush Warrior card. whenever this attacks and kills a minion, gain +2/+2. So you obviously can't play it like whenever, because you need to kill something first, or else it's a pretty crappy card. But when it kills it, you know, even if something deals, let's say 4 or 5 damage to it, it's still alive because it gets the health.
Pretty good.
Yeah, so it's again, these are all like, every time you see Rush, it's without a doubt it's good. Even this is probably the worst of the Rush cards, and it's a Warrior 2-drop, so obviously it's the worst. It's called Red Band Wasp. It is the last Rush card that was revealed. Like we literally went over all the revealed Rush cards at this point. 1/3 2-mana card with Rush, and it says has +3 attack while damaged. So it's a 4 attack whatever whenever it's damaged. It basically has Enrage. And it's a beast. But
yeah,
like, is it a great 2-drop? No, it's 1/3. If your opponent plays a 3/2, this is done for. But if you're a player, and if your player plays, if your opponent plays like a 2/3 or a 2/2, this only just trades with it, right? Like on curve, it's not that great. But later on, when it like mops something up or something, not only can it come out immediately and deal 1 ping damage, which is very useful for Warrior, who otherwise do not have ping damages except using cards in the arena, right? This isn't constructive where you can just load your deck with ping cards. But afterwards, it also leaves a body if you're pinging a small minion. So this is even a pretty good card. Like it may not like come out and scream at you as like, oh, this is a great card, but it really is. Like this is gonna come out to be a like low premium card. I'm just looking at the tier score right now. Like it's gonna be a low premium card in the arena, even if, you know, if you just look at it, this doesn't look anywhere near as good as, say, the Militia Commander.
Yeah. So look, Rush going to be really good. It's going to definitely have a huge impact on the arena. We'd have to see the other cards. I'm guessing every single class gets a Rush card, right?
I don't know, probably. Warrior already has 2.
Right. Well, I think every class will have at least 1, and every class will have at least 1 Echo.
Or they could be like, Priest, you're just slow. You're not in a rush. Just hang out.
Yep. But all right. So I think that sort of establishes Rush, and Blizzard is probably going to make the Rush minions pretty freaking good, just because for constructed, again, these minions that don't rely on other cards as well, like they have to be independently like quite good, right? And if they're quite good in an independent fashion for constructed, they're going to be really, really good in arena.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Echo is really interesting, right? Because, and I've said this like in many Lightforges, especially recently, if you closely look at the design philosophy that Blizzard has been using, it's, okay, we can't make overpowered early drops or small cards. Sorry, just small cards in general, right? It's something that costs like 2 mana or 3 mana. We don't want to make those OP because that's what led to like the zombie chows and the shielded mini bots and like, you know, the GVG meta, right? Mm-hmm. But we also can't make small cards bad because then
no one will play it.
No one will play it, exactly. So what they've done in recent expansions is try to make small cards with a big effect. And that was one of your themes, right? Small cards with
big effect. Also, just before we move on to Echo, I realized that I missed the most important Rush card in the arena that's been revealed so far because I haven't looked at neutrals for some reason. Going back to Rush, Muck Hunter.
Yeah, Muck Hunter.
5 mana, 5/8 Rush. Battlecry summon 2.
We were talking about all the cards, and now you're literally talking through all the cards
for your opponent. We're not talking about all the cards, but like Rush is so important. Like, yeah, we're gonna move on to Echo. Okay. You seem to be high on Echo. I'll say like my opinion on Echo before we talk more about Muck Hunter. I don't think it's going to be anywhere near as good as Rush. I think it's good, no, but okay, wait. So we're aligned on this.
On Echo. I just want to talk about
it. Okay, fine. So we'll talk about Echo after this. But here's another Rush card. And this is a neutral Rush card. It's also like probably the worst Rush card. It's a 5 mana, 5/8 Charger, which sounds really, really good for 5 mana, except you put 2/2/1s. So unless you're casting a board clear on the same turn, you at least need like to ping one of them down, or else your equivalent is like this Muck Hunter is deals 5 damage, and if your opponent's minion like deals 4 damage even, then it just trades. If your opponent deals more than that, then your opponent actually gets minions back for it. Like, is it good?
Hunter into MCT.
Exactly. Like, you need stuff like that. Like, Muck Hunter's still good normally, but it's not like 140 premium that like all these other rush cards are, right? Like,
Yeah,
this is
yeah,
like
yeah.
a balanced rush card. So Blizzard's capable of making balanced rush cards. I think maybe they feel that it must be balanced because of the MCT and the stuff that you can do, right? And constructed with like giving your opponent minions and not having it affect you that negatively. But in the arena, this would be a more like balanced card than the other rush cards. Anyway,
Yeah, I think this is like very balanced, and we've certainly seen and we've learned our lessons from Hungry Dragon. We've learned our lessons from like a lot of the other cards that just spawn stuff for your
it's
opponent,
annoying.
right? It's really annoying
You
stuff
need an
like.
extra attack that you don't have.
Mhm.
And Muck Hunter guarantees that the same thing is happening because although Muck Hunter has an attack that you normally wouldn't have on the turn it comes out, you're giving your opponents two things. So your opponent is always guaranteed to still have at least one extra thing that you can't attack that you need an additional source of damage from.
Yep. So Muck Hunter, you're gonna draft it. It's not a bad card. It's just the double 2/1s are gonna matter quite a lot.
Yeah,
So
and if people are, I see in the chat right now, people are like, "Oh, what happened to the classes that can ping? It's overpowered." No, then it's a 7 mana card. How great is a 7 mana 5/8 charger that gives your opponent a 2/1?
not that great.
Right, it's a pretty balanced card.
It's very balanced.
You
Yeah.
like I said, you really need some kind of like board clear or like just something that really screws your opponent over for this card to be better than like an average-ish kind of card. And to create an average-ish kind of card with Rush is not that like it's not that it's like difficult, but you end up with stuff like Wolf Rider a lot if you're trying to do that. So this is a creative way to get to the same thing. Okay, Echo. What I want to say about Echo, as a mechanic, is Merps was talking about how the design space is working. Totally true. Like that's we've seen it. This is the Tortolian Forager effect, right? Like you get to play something, and Tortolian Forager guarantees the card advantage. Echo doesn't guarantee it. You have to play it later on, but it guarantees that the top deck doesn't screw you, which lets you have a curve. So Echo is going to be very, very good for the curve, the way we're seeing it, because any minion that has the Echo ability is a mediocre curve card, and so it can be used as a curve, and you don't miss out, and it doesn't force your archetype, right? Like the worst thing that happens is you pick like if in the arena, the worst thing that happens is if you pick enough too many 2s and 3s, and your opponents aren't doing that because the meta's a bit slower, as we've all kind of seen in KNC. You're stuck. You have to go forward really, really fast. You don't have any gameplay options. Your deck has archetyped you, and you can only play in a certain way. And then rock, paper, scissors comes out, and you either win or you lose a game before it even kind of starts. With Echo, like assuming, let's say all of your 2, 3, and 4 drops are Echo cards. One, you probably don't have a very good curve because there's some kind of penalty for the card being Echo. But two, you now have options. You don't have to play this card on turn 3 if you don't want to. If you have like something like even more anti-tempo to play, say like something that's attached to a card draw or something, or like an Acolyte of Pain or just whatever, right? Something you don't care about putting out. And then you can play this card later for card advantage if you have a read on your opponent, or because of your opponent's class or something, you're like, I need more card advantage this game. So that's a really cool decision that you can make with Echo cards in the arena. Where everything's a little fluid, and if you have a more card advantage deck than your opponent, it's probably only by a card or two, and Echo will like literally make up a card or two worth of cards, depending on if you play it for 3 mana or for 9 mana. So it definitely, like, I love the design from that perspective. From a power perspective, Echo cards are going to kind of suck when they're minions, at least. Not that they're going to suck, but they're going to not be great.
Right, because on turn 6, do you want to? It's like, do you want double 2/4 taunts for 6 mana? It's like, no, I don't want it. But if it's there, I'll take it. Right, if it's one of my only options, it's like, and I especially on turn 9 don't want triple 2/4 taunts. Right, like by turn 9, like those don't do much of anything. But once again, yeah, I totally love this design. It's something in which they've worked towards for a long time. And I'm surprised like we haven't even seen it since now, right?
Yeah.
But now that we have this this keyword, we're going to see it a lot in this expansion, and we're going to see it a lot in future expansions as well. And I think it just makes sense.
Yeah,
right?
and I'm
Like,
hoping it comes. I'm hoping it comes
Yeah.
on more minions than we've seen, because we haven't seen it on that many minions. We've seen it on a bunch of spells, right? We talked about Warpath earlier, which is Whirlwind for 1 extra mana, but you can like play it as many times as you want, which is very flexible and great for the warrior, right? And this new card also came out for the warrior. This is apparently going to think like Deadly Arsenal. Reveal a weapon from your deck, deal its attack to all minions. That's for 6 mana. Warpath is for 2 mana and it echoes, so you can deal, up to 5 damage to all minions if you spend all 10 of your mana on it. But now warriors are kind of making up for the one thing that they couldn't do, right? Which is to board clear efficiently without Fool's Bane. And now Fool's Bane is rotating out, and they have the Reckless Flurry from the last expansion that came out, and now they have like Warpath, and they're gonna have Deadly Arsenal, so they're gonna be able to deal like damage to everybody at least, like full board clears, not just like one-sided one. So more like Warlock like, but they can get the job done.
Still waiting for my idea. The 1 mana 1/1 Echo minion, and every time you play it, you take away 1 health.
Every time you play, discard a card. That's what's gonna happen.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Okay. I could also see that actually. I mean, that would be like, that would go into specific certain decks of which I have no idea. But yeah, we'll just never draft an arena then. Anyways, so that is Echo.
We'll go over the one more Echo thing. Do you want to talk about Cheap Shot? I think that's the only other Echo card that we've seen that's not a legendary. Oh no, also Sound the Bells. Yeah, there's a lot of spells. Talk about Cheap Shot first.
I think Cheap Shot is a good one. So Cheap Shot is a rogue spell, 2 mana, deal 2 damage to a minion, Echo. This is going to be like good.
Forbidden Flame.
Yeah, exactly, right? Now it also has certain advantages and disadvantages versus Forbidden Flame. One is that you can split this up, right? You can actually split this up. This counts as different spells, which matters now, right? Which definitely matters. So if, like, for example, if you have a Sherazin out there, you just like keep on cheap shotting.
Yeah.
And once again, this is something which, if you just look at 2 mana for 2 damage, it's not great. But if you add in that flexibility, the fact that sometimes on turn 2, they put out a 3/2, and you're like, well, let's just get rid of it. Cheap shot.
Also, you get to hit different targets. That's huge.
Yeah,
like
that is huge.
How many times are you at 10 mana and you're like, oh, I want to deal 10 damage to this thing. I want to Pyroblast this minion. No, but so often you're like, I want to deal 6 damage here and 4 damage there. And it's like a ridiculously great board clear.
Right. So this is something that you'll draft, and you'll be happy like a decent amount of time.
Oh, you're very happy. I think this is a super premium card. Like,
ooh, okay.
Yeah, I really like this. Like, this is very different, I think, than something like Warpath, which does do something warriors can't do, but it's super anti-tempo that you can't do much after it. Because remember, Warpath kills your minions too. So unless you have something with like really high health, like it's gonna be like a little iffy, and it's so overcosted. It's 1 mana overcosted per cast that to do anything with it, you're kind of spending your turn. But Cheap Shot is equivalent tempo. You don't lose any tempo when you Cheap Shot.
Yep.
And it very efficiently allocates the correct amount of tempo damage to everything. Well, okay, not the most efficiently. It's not 1 mana deal 1 damage. That would be overpowered. So there are some gating concerns, but still, I think this is my pick to be a premium rogue card.
Oh my gosh! If Cheap Shot was 1 mana for 1 damage, it would be so like in constructed.
No, this was flat out broken. You'd like be hitting your own minions and stuff to trigger stuff.
Right. No, that would be like probably the most broken card they've like ever printed then.
Yep.
Anyways, so I see you're scrolling up to Sound the Bells.
Sound the Bells.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Paladin.
All right. So Sound the Bells is 2 mana for an Echo spell that is give a minion +1/+2. We've seen this in Divine Strength, right? So it is an overcosted Divine Strength, but you can do it over and over again. And if you think about it, okay, so for 2 mana, sometimes you just need that little extra bit, right, to push this minion past, +1/+2. If you do it for 4 mana, it is a +2/+4. So an overcosted like Valence, well, much worse because you don't get the spells and it doesn't work
You're
as
not
well
a
in Paladin.
priest, yeah.
Yeah, for 6 mana, you get a +3/+6. Not that bad. Like once again, it's one of those things in which like it's like, am I happy with any of these individual results?
No.
No. But put together, it's like I have the option for it to be 2 mana. I have the option for it to be much bigger later on. It's the selection process. It's the flexibility.
Yeah. So the problem with Sound the Bells is not only is the echo part like it gives you the flexibility, but it still has that same trigger, right? You still need a minion that you need to the buff, which the other two cards don't have as much of the inflexibility built into this. Like that's one of the reasons why like Cheap Shot is way better. When you're dealing with a card that's trying to give you flexibility, but then you build into it inflexibility, that means it's inflexible at every cast in the same exact way. Like I always need a minion, I always need a minion. And in the same way that works with Cheap Shot, that doesn't work with I forget the card's name, with Warpath, is you can cast it on different targets, right? So I can sound, let's say I have 2 minions on the board, and I need to try, my goal is to kill my opponent's 2 minions without losing any of my 2 minions. And I have 6 mana. I can sound the bell twice because it needs it, and then sound the bell once the other one. And that's a really good way to split up the damage. To split up the buffs in a way that benefits me. So like Sound the Bells doesn't look too exciting, and you can look at it similarly with like Divine Strength was not like, I remember when we first rated that card, we thought it was going to be really good, and we were wrong, and it was very clear we were wrong. Like within a month, we're like, this card is average at best, probably a little bit below average. Sound the Bells is also not going to be terribly like exciting. It's probably going to be average-ish, I want to say. Maybe not even average-ish. It has like it's too many conditionals are attached to it. This is not like Cheap Shot. So people are thinking like, oh, I mean, Divine Strength is worth 1 mana. Whirlwind is worth 1 mana. You know, Holy Smite is worth 1 mana. So you echo all of them. So they should all be, you know, kind of like similarly good, like well-designed cards. But no, because some of these cards are way better than other cards. Like Divine Strength is just not anywhere near as good as a Holy Smite. And Sound the Bells is going to amplify that compared to Cheap Shot is going to amplify Holy Smite.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. Because some of these are a little bit meta dependent as well, and I don't know. Like, I want to see Paladin's role, right, and exactly how Sound the Bells fits into there. But that's kind of Echo. Like, you're not going to see stuff that is blatantly overpowered because you just can't, right? The ability to play it so many times means that they can't make any given data point, right, that powerful. If it costs 3 mana, they have to make sure that it's not independently powerful at 3, 6, and 9, because that's just stupid. Like, they can't do that. So it has to be mediocre at 3, mediocre at, like, kind of mediocre at 6, and sucks at 9, but it's still an option, right? The fact that it's an option at 9 gives it value. So that's the way it's going to be. And I like, for constructed, it'll obviously have to be like, you know, the ability to play a taunt minion, the ability to play 3 taunts in a row, right? Something like that. And in Arena, it's like, well, you have to just live with the 3 subpar options. But that's fine.
So people wanted to talk about this. You started talking about Hunting Mastiff like earlier when we were talking about Rush, but it's also an echo card. It's the 2 mana 2/1 beast that charges, and you can cast it as many times as you want. It rushes, it doesn't charge. So here's an example where it's basically like a bluegill, but I guess a 2/1, like equivalently a 2/1 rush card would only be worth 1 mana. Like that's how like little mana rush costs from Blizzard's perspective.
Well, it's also a class card, so
well, all these are class cards. Cheap Shot's a class card. The Bell thing's a class card. Warpath is a class card.
We have seen they have taken like more liberties with class cards, like for different classes to differentiate themselves from other classes, right? In terms of power level for something that should be like a little bit like more similar, you know. So with Hunting Mastiff, I can kind of see And it's hard because once again, whenever you make something that costs like 1 or 2 mana, it can only be 1 or 2 mana,
Right,
right?
right, yeah.
And its attack can't be like 1.7 attack. It has to be either 1 or 2. Its health has to be either
Unless you're
1 or 2.
shaman, then you can deal 1 or 2 attack.
That is fair. Shaman RNG. So yeah, I mean, we talked about this card. I don't think there's much
Yep.
to address there. But yeah, I mean, this is another Echo card. Same philosophy.
But like a really, really, really good one.
Oh yeah, this is good.
And it's because you can summon extra ones, even if you have nothing to attack with it. Okay. So let's talk about the last thing with Witchwood. It's not an ability. So it was one thing if people were wondering, the evens and odds thing, I think it's been confirmed at this point, right? That they won't be in the arena at all, those
They're
cards.
not in the arena.
Okay.
Nope.
So we're not going to talk about those cards. And I think it's interesting to point out that 2 years ago, and this is what's rotating out in Old Gods, Cthulhu was the same way. But, and this is going to fit into my next point, which is about curve. All Cthulhu cards are curve cards, and they were not in the arena. And this first expansion of every block of every year is always heavy on curve cards, because Blizzard needs something to work off of for each of the expansion sets. So you saw Ungoro being really heavy on curve cards. You saw Old Gods, if you had included Cthulhu cards, be really heavy on curve cards. And right now, what we're seeing with Witchwood is pretty heavy on the curve cards. 6 of the 10 neutral, non-legendary neutral cards revealed so far are curve cards. Some of them are even over curve cards. This is a lot higher than the normal ratio of curve card versus non-curve cards that get released, especially more recently. And the evens and odds, because they're so constructing deck focused, the vast majority of those are not curve cards. So when they get taken out, we're not actually losing curve. In fact, because they're taken out, all the other cards get seen more frequently, and curve goes up even more. So this is one of those expansions where, interestingly, and I want to say like for the first time since GVG, we will have an expansion that will be... No, that's not true. KFT did that a little bit, but you didn't see it because it came out at the same time as Synergy Picks. That screwed everything over. But, so if you don't count that, because Blizzard used Synergy Picks to screw up that entire meta, this will be the first time, assuming Blizzard doesn't do something else to screw up the meta, that we are seeing a more curve-focused meta. Not that curve is better, but just that you will have more options and more abilities to create a deck with a curve. So 10.4 already gives you the ability to create a deck with a curve nearly whenever you want. You just have to keep picking the curve cards whenever you offer them. But now, it's going to be easier, and you're going to be more pushed in that direction because you'll see it more frequently. And I don't want to go over every single one of these like neutral curve cards, but I am going to talk about 2 things. One is my favorite card that has been released so far. And the other one is what I'm going to start with there, which is the 3/4s. Blackwalled Pixie is a card. It is a 3-mana 3/4 common neutral card. Battlecry, refresh your hero power. Ignore the Battlecry for now. It's a 3/4. We haven't seen a neutral common 3/4 since Spider Tank got rotated out. And that's a pretty big deal. And on top of that, you also have what was on the first set of reveals, the Nightmare Amalgam, which is a 3-mana 3/4 epic neutral that's all classes. Like, not all classes. Like, it's Elemental, Meg, Demon, Murloc,
All
Dragon,
tags.
Beast, all tags. All tribal tags. Which, again, ignore the tribal tag thing for now. It's still a 3-mana 3/4. We just haven't seen 3-mana 3/4s for such a long time, and they affect the curve meta so much. Because normally, what do you see right now at 3? You see 3-mana 4/3s, and you see 3-mana 3/3s a lot. 3-mana 3/3s are going to be absolutely wrecked by these guys. And 3-mana 4/3s are going to trade evenly with these guys. So, it's a very interesting thing to be adding here. And in addition to this, what's going to make this really affect the meta is that you're also going to be taking away 3/4/3 neutral commons. Or rares, common/rares, with the rotation. Higher Gun, Toxic Sewer Ooze, and Violet Illusionist are all rotating out. So that's a bulk. Like right now we have a lot of 4/3s, and there's still going to be some 4/3s left. It's not like we're getting rid of all the 4/3s, right? Like just out of the basics, right? Like Injured Blade Master is always going to be a car. I think there's like a couple more. um, that are just 4/3s and neutrals. But now you're going to have a 3/4 counterpart that's going to be every bit as frequently seen, if not more so, than the 4/3s.
Yeah. So once again, yeah, you have your Injured Blade Master. You also have your Dragon Slayer, right? That's one that we'll keep on seeing for quite a while, and that's going to be a very highly picked card. So you're going to see your Dragon Slayers, but yeah, we are missing really, really core cards that have sort of helped define the 3 slot, right? Like Vile Illusionist, Toxic Sewer Ooze, and Hired Gun, 4/3s that do something else as well, that have upside. And yeah, they are going away.
They're being replaced with 3/4s. This is such a fundamental shift in the meta. Like, I don't know if you guys remember the 3/4 meta when Spider Tank was available, and wasn't even like just Spider Tank, but it was like between Spider Tank and like Ogre Brute and like just like stuff, right, that can survive a Raptor or a 3/3. It really like changes when the game is won if you are playing curve. And that's what this meta is going to be like. Like, there's going to be these 3/4s. So if you choose to play on curve, which with the curve focus of Witchwood, I think most decks are going to end up choosing to play on curve. It's going to be this kind of like curve stony thing again, and it's going to be broken up a little bit because now we have a lot more initiative. So it's not like it's going to be GVG all over again. But we're definitely moving in that direction. There's no way this next meta ends up being like anything like KNC. And this is the first time that's happened, that we have moved back into like less messiness in the early game and more curve, into less passing stuff on and doing nothing in a turn, and more like playing on the board.
Yep.
So that's going to be really interesting for Witchwood. And the other card that I want to talk about in the neutral category, it's recently revealed. I love this card. Witchwood Grizzly. And when I say I love this card, I mean I'm going to hate this card. It's a 5 mana 3/12 taunt. 3/12 taunt. Battle Cry. Lose 1 health for each card in your opponent's hand. So like, I don't know, 3-4 health, right? Probably. Which is like not all that much. And it is a 3/12 taunt. I'm going to repeat that. At your opponent's 5 mana turn, if they play like a 5/5, this will actually kill the 5/5 while also taunting.
Yep.
They could play a 5/6. This will kill the 5/6 while also taunting.
Yeah. Look, it's going to be a good arena card, right? And mostly just because in arena, it's not like in constructed, in which part of the there's always going to be a lot of decks and a lot of classes that just hold on.
Hold on, I'm reading chat right now. I've read this card wrong. It's not you that loses health. It's the Witchwood Grizzly that loses the health. I'm much less excited about this card now.
Did you not realize this?
It just says lose 1 health.
I was about to say, I was like, okay, we can talk about the fact that, you use more cards.
Because it doesn't say, they've never said lose 1 health. What's Injured Blade Master? Deal damage to your minion. That's how it's always been phrased. It's never been phrased lose health.
Okay, because I was just like, okay, well, you're really high in this card. I'm gonna just say, I'm like, yeah, sure. People use more cards, so it'll come out, as like a 3/8, a decent amount of times. And I was gonna say, I was like, right. And also, we have to recognize that like once it loses health, so it's been confirmed that once it loses health, it's not like an injured.
Oh, it can't heal it back.
It can't be healed.
Okay, so that's why it says lose health. I see. Okay, so it's fundamentally different than like Injured Blade Masters.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm less excited about that card. It's a 5 mana 3/8 now. That's like maybe potentially a little higher in the late game when, this is a less useful card.
Yep.
So it only trades with a 5/5. Ugh. Alright, I'm over it. It's an average-ish card. That turned really quickly.
Yeah. So people, I mean, now like you are now people in chat are like, wait, what if ADWCTA is correct? There has actually been no official confirmation, but people just like they've analyzed sort of like what this text means, and they're like, we think that it means for this minion, not from like also this is just too overpowered if it's like your own health.
I don't know. Have you seen Primordial Drake?
I mean, yeah, but primordial. Once again, we're balancing for constructed, right?
Do you think this is better for constructed than Primordial Drake?
Yeah, because primordial Drake is 8 mana.
Oh, okay, because it's too late because you're dead by then.
Yeah.
All right, fine, fair. Okay.
Exactly.
All right.
Like,
well, any other neutral card you want to talk about before we move on from Witchwood?
no. Wait. Like anything I want to talk about in Witchwood before we move on to
before we move on to the rotation.
Okay, no, I think that's it. Like once again, we've already done almost an hour on this. Let's move on because I don't want to talk too much about these cards before we have seen like the rest of the cards, right?
Okay.
So let's move on. Anyways, what we also want to talk about today are the 3 sets that are rotating out. Right. So the sets that are rotating out are the Old Gods expansion, One Night in Karazhan, and Mean Streets of Gadgetzan. So 2 full expansions along with 1 adventure, which we will never have anymore. But Karazhan is like a mini expansion, and we're going to be taking that out as well. So we should analyze what this means and what important cards we are sort of losing. So let's lump all these together and let's see what we are losing for neutral cards.
Okay, so we're doing neutral first, and then we're doing like the classes.
The classes,
okay.
And we'll go down the classes. Right.
I'm going to interrupt that for now and break this up with a question from the GOAT, so we don't do it at the very end.
Oh, okay, fine.
Because this is a good middle spot in the podcast, right?
Good. Yeah. This is good. So question from the GOAT is related to another animal, an animal that you have, an animal that
you don't
has
think
recently
I have a raven? Wouldn't a raven totally like be a cool thing that I could have?
I mean, it could, but I think they're like
a mammoth.
Or a mammoth, but we're no longer in the year of the mammoth. And before that, you needed a kraken. So it just keeps on getting easier and easier, right? Like at least the kraken never existed, or some people might say it did. But as far as we know, krakens never existed.
What do you mean? Some people might say it still exists today. Where's the proof that it doesn't exist?
The mammoth we definitely know existed, but they're no longer alive. And also, I don't know how you're able to get one. But a raven, very achievable. Dude, they made it so easy for you to get that. And then next year will be like year of like the dragon or something. And then it'll be hard again. But anyways, you have recently opened your doors and your home to a new animal, right? Tell us about this.
I am fostering a bunny. I know if you guys don't know, Merps has 2 chinchillas. And if you watch the stream, you obviously know. They like riot and make tons of noise and make themselves known. But I have never had a pet before in my life for more than like a few weeks before it died. And that's a good preface for my bunny, and I hope my bunny doesn't die. But it's because I only had like 1 pet before, and it was like a duck, and it like we found it on the street of Beijing, and we put it in the kitchen, and then it died like a week later because it wouldn't eat. So it wasn't like we did anything to the duck. I'm pretty sure this duck was like bound for death anyway. But it was very traumatizing to me as like a 5-year-old or maybe 6-year-old kid. And so I haven't had a pet since then. And now, being 31 years old, I have decided that I may have achieved enough responsibility in my life to adopt a pet without it just being cruelty to animals. Speaking of which, the bunny is currently locked in the bathroom right now, because we're recording the Lightforge. But it's a pretty sizable bathroom, and brand new's there with the bunny, so it's not alone. I'm being sent regular pictures of the bunny right now as we're recording this, and it's chill. So the bunny's name is Evie, and brand new. My girlfriend and I we haven't formally adopted it. We're like fostering the bunny for now, but we can like pull the trigger and do the adoption anytime, and we're leaning that way, but taking another month for it. So if you look at my Twitter, you'll see some pictures and videos with the bunny.
Okay,
that's all the information I have of the bunny right now. Well, we blocked off the whole kitchen for it, so the kitchen is no longer mine, which is fine. I never did anything in the kitchen anyway.
So its name is Eevee, named after the Pokemon?
Named after the Pokemon, but spelled differently, because the Pokemon has a really stupid spelling. The Pokemon's like E-E-V-E-E, like why? Why not name it like the normal person's name, like E-V-I-E?
I don't think E-V-I-E is like a very normal name anyways.
What?
But sure.
Eevee's totally a normal human name.
Do you know any Eevees?
That Netflix show, Lovesick? That girl's name is Eevee.
Like anyone in real life?
In V for Vendetta, her name, Natalie Portman's character's name is Eevee.
Anyone in real life?
These are basically people in real life.
No, TV is not real life.
Oh, then I don't know real life at all.
No, you don't. All right, moving on. Sets leaving the meta. So we're talking about OG, Karazhan, and MSG. Let's talk about
question from the GOAT, brought to you by our patrons at patreon.com/grinninggoatmerps. Thank you guys so much for the support. Merps really wants to like make this a podcast not be 2 hours, by the way. That's like his goal.
Thank you guys. That is my goal. You keep on. You're like, oh, I still want to talk about 3 of my favorite cards. I'm like, all right, that's another 15 minutes. But all right, look. Here are some of the cards that we are losing. So let's just focus on some of the 1 and 2 drops, right? Most importantly, the 2 drops. And what we're going to be missing are Biofin Tidehunter, Twisted Worgen, Pompous Thespian. These are cards that we have seen over and over and over again, right? Friendly Bartender, and then like we're also going to be missing Netherspite Historian. Not really a 2-drop, but also one of those cards that's just so annoying, right? And you do see it.
I'm going to jump in and say these cards don't matter.
Well, I don't know if they don't matter. Because I think it depends on how many 2-drops we get in this new meta, right?
Oh yeah, I'm saying these cards don't matter because they're like normal 2-drops.
I mean, they're normal 2-drops, but normal 2-drops, like, they help shape like when the game begins.
Yeah.
Because you dropping something, that matters.
Totally.
You just dropping something.
Yeah, but you gotta like drop something, and it doesn't really matter what that something is exactly. So these are all just those background Raptor-y, slightly special Raptors that they've been making. And they're gonna make more of these whenever there's a 2-drop coming. But more important than that, when these go away, it's not like they're replaced by cards that are not curve cards. They're replaced by whatever had existed before these cards, right? Like, so you're going to see more Ungoro cards, you're going to see more classic cards, you're going to see more KFT cards, you're going to see more KNC cards, right?
Right.
That's what's going to happen. And the way the numbers work out, the number of 2-drops you'll see in any given draft is going to go up without Witchwood. Based purely almost on classic and Ungoro having so many 2-drops. So the fact that these cards go away, 1, they're not terribly special cards that you're going to like play around or do crazy stuff with. But 2, the fact that they're 2-drops doesn't matter. If anything, what we should be looking at is there aren't all that many 2-drops going away. There aren't all that many 2-drops or even curve cards in general going away. And there aren't that many because OG had a lot of curve cards, literally all the Cthulhu cards, never be in the arena in the first place. And from what we've seen in the Witchwood, as I've, like kind of talked about in the Witchwood reviews, there's a bunch of curve cards that we already see. Like the ratio of curve cards is very good. So curve is going up, not down. So any cards that we're actually missing that we're going to really notice that it's gone are going to be things that aren't just like generic 2-drops or 3-drops or 4-drops or whatever. Like a card besides the 4-3-3-4 thing that we talked about that's going to be really noticeable. Here's a neutral card that I think we're really going to like notice not seeing, and that's Mistress of Mixtures.
I think all right, so we can talk about Mistress of Mixtures, and I'll give you something that I think will have an even bigger impact.
I have another card I have 2 more cards with bigger impacts, but Mistress of Mixtures is the lowest costing one. Obviously it's 1 mana,
right?
But I want to talk about it because it is the last remnant outside of whatever that like Hive Queen card is that's not very good. but it's the last remnant of a good 1-drop that's overstated on curve, right? There's no more 3/2s, no more zombie chows. Like, these stuff on turn 1, they don't happen anymore in any of the new expansions. And Mistress of Mixtures was kind of the last one. So, unless Witchwood gives us one of these, we're going to be back to the 1/3 or 2/1 as the highest amount of stats you can get on turn 1.
Mistress of Mixtures was one of those cards in which they looked at Zombie Chow and they're like, this is too good, but let's try a variant of it.
Yeah.
That is not as powerful, but people then have started to play it and they're like, wait, I can heal myself and get like a lot of stats on one? That's really good, right? Warlocks salivate over Mistress of Mixtures. This is like so good. So I don't know if we'll see another one similar to this. Again, like we might just be done with something of this variant, right? But that's Mistress of Mixtures. Once again, it was never like a super premium, but it definitely helped out classes establish themselves on turn 1, and it was definitely like the not so secret but secret anchor to a lot of decks, right? So one card that we are going to really see the impact of it leaving is Corrupted Seer.
Yeah, that's one of the 2 cards on my list.
I mean, what this does is if you look at the neutral AoE, first of all, Blizzard doesn't like to print neutral AoEs. Like they don't print a lot of them, and for good reason. AoE is something which they would like to fine tune for every single class, whether or not to give them AoE and how much AoE to give them, right? So right now we have Corrupted Seer and we have Primordial Drake as neutral AoEs. Now, Primordial Drake is still ridiculous. Like, it's just so much better than Corrupted Seer. But at the same time, Corrupted Seer is one of those that you see so often and you do have to anticipate it, right? Like, you do have to think, well, like, do I want to play into, like, a 2 damage AoE? And it doesn't always have to be Corrupted Seer. And some classes have, like, other 2 damage AoEs, right? But this just increased the probability of any single class having that AoE so often. And now, yes, classes still have Primordial Drake, but you don't have to worry about the Corrupted Seer anymore.
Yeah. Like if you're talking about a class like, let's say, a Warrior, right, which doesn't usually have AoEs, or like Rogue, which actually just doesn't have AoEs outside of Phantom Knives, you're decreasing the chance you see one of these by like 50%.
Yep.
That's huge. Even on the cards, like if you look at Consecration with a Paladin or something, right? What does Paladin have? It's Consecration. It's nothing else besides Consecration. So you're still decreasing it by like 20% or something like that. And it's all very big. And to go with that, it's not even the only card that's leaving here. Volcanic Potion is also leaving in the 2 damage categories. So if you're facing a mage, especially in the earlier turns before like the other board clears can come on, I guess you can't do the earlier turns because it's a Corrupted Seer. But still, you have like Blizzard left, and then everything else is bigger. So it definitely has an impact. And it's great. I hated this card. I hated playing it. I recognized it was powerful, but I really hated playing against it. It's just like neutral AoEs. I just hate neutral AoEs. Like, what can I say?
Well, design-wise, there's no reason for it.
Right.
Like, just because AoE is such a powerful and like non-fun thing to do, right? It's a fun killer. AoE is just a fun killer.
It's like if they gave like hard removals to like every class, like real ones, not like poisonous minions.
Right. So with something like this, it's like it really needs more fine tuning. So hopefully they sort of learned their lesson from Corrupted Seer, and Primordial Drake was then looking at Corrupted Seer. It's like, this is a bad card, but if we made it a lot more powerful, maybe it wouldn't be so bad. Anyways,
and we're not talking about like the point of Corrupted Seer isn't that it is a AoE. It's also like that's why it's kind of problematic. But the more interesting part is that it's 2 damage. Like you actually play around this kind of stuff sometimes. Like a lot of times you say play around an AoE against a class that doesn't really have AoEs. What you mean is play around 2 damage. Why? Because of Primordial Drake, because of Corrupted Seer, all that stuff. And now that's gone. So if you're playing around like a 3 damage AoE, you're playing around something a totally different ballgame here. So you'll still play around that the same amount, but now you'll play around 2 damage stuff only slightly more than you play around the 3 damage stuff. And that's a fundamentally different way to play the game. Like when you do your trades, when you set up your minions, like everything changes because of something like this. Now, to be fair, this, depending on the class, changes 50% to 20%. So it's not like everything changes 100%, but it's still a serious like difference, and you should play according to that. So yeah, so the other neutral card that's going away that I really want to like point out, and this is going to have a huge impact as well if you're an advanced player, is Bomb Squad. Because Bomb Squad is picked a lot, it's seen a lot, and it deals 5 damage neutral to anything. Like, yeah, Reckless Rocketeer could do the same, but generally, no, not really. It's kind of getting replaced, I guess, right now by that, like, Charger, right? Like, in a weird way, it's getting replaced by the neutral charging guy we were talking about. I keep forgetting his name. Muck Hunter. Because it's a bad, horrible name. Because it's a 5-mana rusher that deals 5 damage. But normally, when it comes to removals, like you just don't have a lot of 5 damage removal things. Fireland's Portal is also leaving, so Mage won't have a 5 damage removal. Shadow Strike is also leaving, so Rogue won't have a 5 damage removal. Paladin has never had a 5 damage removal. Like, you have all these classes that just don't have 5 damage removals. And you can start kind of playing to that again.
Yeah, so Bomb Squad is one of those in which neutral initiative, right? Neutral initiative is something that has also been fairly rare. And not only are you missing Bomb Squad, you're also missing Spiked Hog Rider, right? It's a conditional card, but once again, because of the number of taunts that we have seen in the standard meta, which will also decrease a little bit because OG is going going away as well. We're not going to see some of the popular taunts like Cyclotron and Bog Creeper, but you're also going to be missing like Spiked Hog Rider.
Yeah, Spiked Hog Rider too.
Yep. So
and that's 5 damage.
5 damage, exactly. So we're missing that. But so another card in the neutral
before we go there, like I just want to point out how important this 5 damage thing is. If you've been playing this game for a while, you know how important 5 health is. Like, back in Classic, 5 health was a standard bearer for safe, because you had Flame Strike and you had nothing else. So the question was always, and mages dominated everything, so it was like, can you survive a Flame Strike? And it, like, not coincidentally, Eviscerate, which rogues were the other powerful class, and True Silver, paladins were the other powerful class, they were all 4 damage. So you're like, if you are between 5 health and too much health that you can be hard removed, like, very efficiently, that's where you want to be. You want to be at 5 health. 6 health is probably perfect. Like,
I mean, there's not, like, it's just, right, of course, like, we don't have this sort of, hard line anymore, but, like, we just don't have that for a lot of, like, what are you trying to establish that 5 is the new line? Because it just seems to me like the game is so sort of
let me finish. Let me finish. I haven't
okay,
even made my point yet at all. You're trying to guess at my point. So,
well, no, because I'm like, if your point is just the fact that it's like 4 is no longer the magic number, I'm like,
no, that's not my point.
Okay, go on.
I said in Classic 4 was the 4 was no longer the magic number when Bomb Squad came out. Bomb Squad was part of OG, was the expansion that killed the 4 is the magic number concept. 4 was the magic number all the way through OG. Like, OG was 2 years ago, so maybe it's difficult to think back farther than that, but there were many expansions before OG that came out, and none of them killed the idea that 4 damage was the magic number in the arena. Because nothing was dealing 5 damage consistently, or above that across all classes. And remember, OG is the Shadow Strike plus Bomb Squad. Like, if you go back to the Lightforge when OG comes out, we literally made a point about this, I'm pretty sure. Like, 5 damage was a big thing. And then Karazhan with Firelands really kind of brought the point home. So, now that we're kind of going away from this 5 damage one, I'm not saying 4 damage is once again, like, the thing, but it had gotten to the point where there were so many cards, and because 5 had eroded, that there was no kind of steps anymore, right? It was like 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever. Like, damage is damage. Now, I'm not saying 4 damage is the new thing, but getting above 4 damage, it does become a consideration. A bigger consideration than, say, going from 5 to 6 damage, or 3 to 4 damage, or 2 to 3 damage. Especially now that the 2 damage AoEs got eroded a bit. Like, it's not like 5 is safety. I'm not saying we're back to Classic. We're obviously not. Like, Muck Hunter exists. But we're like halfway back to classic when it comes to the 5 damage, that exact like 5 health amount. Like the punishes for 5 health is very, very few and infrequent.
I don't know if we can say that already, just because we don't know the cards. And we
Okay, I mean, like, not counting,
right?
like, if they have more Witchwood cards that deal 5 damage, fine. But I mean, just knowing what we know now. Like, you can't just assume that Witchwood cards are going to be a certain way or not a certain way, right? So if you just look at all the cards that exist that we know exist in the meta in 2 weeks, 5 health is going to be a big deal in the arena. It's not as safe as it was in Classic, not by like half, but it is safe by like half. Compared to where, if you were a player that's only been playing in the meta in the last year or like year and a half, you don't even know this concept. And we're going back there halfway from the way these cards are shaking
out. Okay. I don't really see, because we're basically replacing, if you replace Bomb Squad with Muck Hunter, right?
But you can't. Like, you're not going to see Muck Hunter as much as Bomb Squad. It's not as good as Bomb Squad for 1. It's an epic card for 2. Right?
Right. Okay. Right, and you don't see, it's like Fireline's Portal was a super premium.
And so Muck Hunter gives you 2/2/1s. Like, if you're like thinking about removing it, like Muck Hunter could be give your opponent a 2/1 instead of give yourself a 2/2, right? Like, it's a very different concept on the board.
Sure. I just think like I don't see the conclusion as strongly.
I mean, it's just a numbers game. I'm like literally I ran the numbers. Like, you're going to see much fewer 5. And again, it's not just Muck Hunter versus Bomb Squad. Like you said, you brought up Hog Rider, but Shadow Strike and Firelands are also the big 5 damage dealers in terms of frequency of seeing that class and frequency that class has that card.
Yeah, we're definitely missing some like good 5 damage. 5 damage.
You're missing all the good 5 damage spells that are like non-epic. All of them. What you're left with is like Starfire. Like, that was why Classic was so... It wasn't like you couldn't deal 5 damage in Classic. You could deal 5 damage in Classic. You just weren't using the best cards to do it because they didn't exist. You were, like, Starfiring. You were, like, I don't know, Holy Firing, right? Like, Arcanine Reaper was the 5 damage killer that was a really good card. And that still exists, but that's it.
Yeah, we are. I mean, we are missing Dragonfire Potion. We're missing Fellfire Potion. So we'll see what comes out, but I get it. Okay. All right.
Before we go on to classes, I want to talk about tri-class discovers.
Oh, well, before we get into that, I want to say what I was going to say.
Oh, okay. Go for it. Do you have another
before
card?
You interrupted me with this like whole 5 damage thing. We're also, look, so quickly, we're also going to be missing Cookie Chemist. And this is one of those things in which it's pretty important because as we move forward, we are like only going to be seeing more and more sort of polarized minions. And it's like we see it with like the Grizzly, right? Like the Druid Grizzly. We see it with like these 3/8.
Yeah, when you say polarizing, you mean a very high differential between attack and health.
Right. So you're going to see a lot of like 3/8 or 3/9 minions. You're going to see the 6/2 or 6/3 minions, right? And with stuff like this, or you know, we have already seen it with like Crypt Lords as well. And when you have something like a Kooky Chemist, it just allows these boards to be swung a lot faster, right? Like, and the fact that you're taking this away. So what do you have left? You have Crazed Alchemist, which is like, like it just doesn't have
an average-ish card. It's always been an average-ish card,
right? You have Void Ripper, which is really really good. But you're missing. Yeah, you're missing like the anchor to this sort of flipping mechanic, right? Which is the Kooky Chemist. So I think that'll make a huge difference because as we move on, the Kooky Chemist, if it had stayed, it would have been more and more relevant, right? But unfortunately, we let him go. Like, and he's
fortunately we let him go.
I've always liked it, but no, I do agree. I think it would have been sort of
bigger swings, right? Like it's getting to the point where you don't want those kinds of cards around. And the thing with Kooky Chemist is 4/4 is a real 4-drop. 3/3 is a questionable 3-drop, especially because 3-drops keep getting better. 2/2 is not really a 2-drop.
I remember when Kooky Chemist came out, and I've liked this card since the very beginning. I remember this, and then you were just like, Dark Iron Dwarf is so much better than Kooky Chemist, and I was like, no. I think Kooky Chemist is like really good, almost as good as a Dark Iron Dwarf. And then, you know, I don't understand what came out of that, but I think if we
no,
were to,
well, we kept moving Cookie Chemist up until now.
right.
I think Cookie Chemist is, what is it? Cookie Chemist is a 118. Dark Iron Dwarf is a 116. Cookie Chemist is actually above Dark Iron Dwarf right now.
And I think that's just fair. It's very fair.
Yeah.
Like its ability and just all these weird, complicated boards.
And the meta kept going in Cookie Chemist's way, like you said, with the high health, low attack minions coming out.
Yeah. So goodbye, Cookie Chemist. You were good, and you were going to rule this meta, or just make a lot of people pissed off.
Yes, make a lot of people pissed off. I'm gonna miss Cookie Chemist in the same way I miss Piloted Shredder, as in, I have played it a lot and played against it a lot, but I don't really want it to stay around in any way, shape, or form. I'm happy that it's gone at this point.
Yeah, it's all right. Yep.
Okay. Tri-class cards. They're leaving. That doesn't really matter too much, except for Discovers.
Yeah.
Now, LOE's already gone. So you're kind of like, if you had asked me when LOE was gone, I was like, oh, Discover would be leaving. But Discover is still very much alive because of these tri-class cards. So literally every single class has a class card, so it gets the offering bonus, that discovers from 3 classes. And they're all really good freaking cards, so they get picked a lot. And they, like, ruin your ability to predict stuff. And so Discover used to be this, like, bastion of, like, oh, Blizzard got something right? Like, it's fun, it's fair, skilled players get more out of it. Like, and then Blizzard took it and turned it into, haha, RNG, like, you know, fest, whatever, like, hi, it's Hearthstone again. As
not only can you find stuff from other classes, you can find banned cards from other classes.
Yeah, you can find, it's the Death Knight, right? Like, every time I draft now, everyone wants you to take the tri-class cards, and I'm like, why? I have, like, a Fireball here with it, why would I do that? And they're like, Jaina, and I'm like, oh, okay. I see Twitch chat on what they're trying to do. But it's true. Thank God they're gone. They had their moment. They were, I don't want to say good, but they were interesting. But they were interesting for too long. Like, those cards should have been phased out or adapted somehow way before. So good riddance to them. Also, the Potion Guy's gone. No longer have to argue why the Potion Guy is not a great card. I remember I kept having that argument with you because you like the Potion Guy.
I like Cabal Chemist.
Cabal Chemist, yeah. You like him. I think he's like a totally average card, and most people think he's a premium card for some reason.
Yeah, I don't think he's a premium card, but I do like him better than you. And it's sort of me just like giving in to this idea. I'm like, you know, I do have to high roll, you know? Like, and I think
it's a purely random potion.
It is a purely random potion, and the difference between you getting a good potion versus like high-size potion or freezing potion is huge. But yeah, once again, it's one of those cards in which, just as Servant of Yogg-Saron, which is also leaving, has become like an actual decent card. Cabal Chemist, it's one of those like necessary evils that you're gonna have to draft. And when you do get a good potion, which is not rare, you know, it's not like Servant of Yogg-Saron.
It's like 1/3 of the time you get a good potion.
Right, and like another third of the time you get like
it's an average card.
Right, so that is leaving as well, and I think most people are going to be happy about it because whenever my opponent plays Cabal Chemist as well, I'm just like, okay.
God, I hate when my opponents play Cabal Chemist.
Right, well, because they have a 2 in 7 chance. It's 7 total, right? 2 in 7 chance of getting one of the 5 damage AoEs, right? And then it's like they now have a chance for Potion Madness as well. And it's just like, I don't know. I'm not sure. And 2 out of 7 for that big AoE, that never makes me feel good.
Yep. And we won't talk about this, but yeah, in addition to these 3 sets that are leaving the meta, the arena-only cards are also leaving the meta, and I believe that's really only impactful for Shaman and Warrior, which they have the Longsword and Crackling Doom that are insane cards, and you won't see them as much. So, yep, those are the two classes at the top, and you can expect them to drop a little, even without adjustments, just because those 2 cards are so good. And we talked about that in the last... in the last Lightforge. So we won't talk more about those, but that's obviously something to remember about the rotation that doesn't affect Constructed.
Yep. Okay. Makes sense.
So let's go over the classes fairly quickly. I think this is less about like what classes are good or bad, and more about what you should watch out for when you're like either drafting the class or more importantly when you're facing the class, right? Because when a rotation happens, the meta will change, but also each sub-meta about how you face a particular class changes, and that's going to have a heavy impact on your win rate. It always does.
Yep.
So first, you want to start with Druid? Or how did you order them?
Yeah, I ordered it like how we always ordered it.
Okay, so
you take Druid first, so I can talk about Hunter.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah.
So for Druid, the big thing that's happening is that all the beasts are gone. And I don't mean the beasts themselves are gone. I mean all the things that do anything with beasts for Druid. Because Beast Druid became a thing. Like, it wasn't a thing in Classic. And then at some point, Blizzard was like, we're going to give a bunch of cards to Druid to make them work really well with beasts. And everyone was like, okay, I guess. And so this is Menadre Warden, Vermin Sensei, and of course the big one, Mark of Yasharaj.
Yeah.
Those are all leaving. All of them. So what are we left with? Like, that card that draws a couple cards and may, like, reduce the cost of your... No, that's even minions. That's not even beasts. Nothing. We're left with nothing. We may get left with, like, some... What are we... Do you have...
Beast Druid is essentially dead.
Yeah, there may be one, like, straggler card or, like, something that's left there, but it's dead. Beast Druid is not a thing unless these new Witchwood cards have Beast Druids in it. And there is. Like, we already see one Druid card that's been revealed that that has a beast thing into it. Witching Hour. Summon a random friendly beast that died this game. But that's not one of those, like, oh, you need a bunch of beasts to make it, like, happen. That's more like control. Like, I want to have only big beasts, right?
Right. It's not really beast synergy. It's like you tailoring your deck a little bit more. That's basically it.
Yeah. And so that's huge. So when you see a beast left on the board that the Druid has, and also just as a general thing, your Menadre Magician and your Zubats are also gone from the meta. So just normal classes don't have to worry about buffing, like, you know, beasts or whatever. So you don't have to remove that beast anymore. So that, like, oh, danger, here's a beast, we have to remove it off the board because it's a Druid thing, no longer exists.
Right, and you also... Like, you always had this this anxiety, this tension whenever they put out a big beast, right?
Yeah.
You want to get rid of it because if they did drop the Warden on the next turn on their, like, Sated Threshodon, right? If they dropped that, then it was kind of game over. Like, you can't deal with two Sated Threshodons. So, but now you don't really have that fear, right?
Yeah.
And it heavily impacts your decision making because before you were thinking, well, maybe I just, like, go face, and now you're just like, yeah, I definitely go face. Like, I don't need to give this Threshodon any sort of respect anymore.
Exactly. It's actually a pretty big impact when playing against the Druid. The other big card that's leaving is just Mark of Lotus, which is just a really good card and really supports that token Druid kind of play style. I wouldn't say it makes Token Druid that much worse because so many cards are leaving, and this is the only one that's, like, super heavily in favor of the Token Druid, but it is one of the Druid's most powerful cards, so I figure I should mention it. The other big thing when it comes to Druid, I think, is that not a lot of things are leaving. Like, in terms of the highest power level stuff. Like, Mark of Yasharaj is very good, Mark of the Lotus is very good, but that's kind of it. Like, Druid gets to keep... It's not like Druid's ever had terribly powerful cards until that one expansion, a KFT. And then a bunch of those were nerfed. But, like, it's all kind of fine for the Druid. If anything, their overall power levels are going to go up a little bit. They're definitely going to get a much more consistent curve because not a lot of curve cards are going away and curve in general is going up. Remember, Druids used to be king of curve. And they're going to kind of go back into that direction, which, again, is why I say the whole Token Druid thing isn't, like, dead or anything just because Mark of the Lotus is leaving. But you're going to see the Druids get more consistent and probably a little bit better, but not on the terribly, like, high end. And here's something that you may not think about, but Ultimate Infestation is going to be seen more because we're taking 300 cards away from the meta. Like, you're just going to see more Ultimate Infestations the way you'll see more of every card you hate that's not explicitly leaving the meta. So I think Druids are going to be fine, but definitely they're less scary now when you play against them. They're much more, like, normal, which is, I kind of think, the way they should be. Not that I think beast synergies are wrong, but I think Druids had some, like, pretty insane beast synergies. They probably could do with some, like, more minor beast synergies. Yeah, so we'll see where they take Druid, but generally, no more beast for Druid.
Yep.
Let's talk about Hunter.
Let's talk about Hunter. All right, so let's talk about some key cards that Hunter is losing. But if we look at sort of what they're losing quite a few tools and very powerful tools in the early game, right? So they're losing like Fiery Bat, they're losing Kind Grandmother, Cloaked Huntress, huge one, right? Like an insane amount of tempo on turn 3. You can play secrets. They're losing Alley Cat, Trog Beast Rager,
just all these like curve and tempo cards, all of them,
right? So they're losing all of this, and also at the top they're losing like Call of the Wild, right? Which is really good, but we don't need to talk about that so much. But what's important is if you look at what's left, if you look at Ungoro, KFT, and Kobolds and Catacombs, Ungoro was kind to hunters, right?
Yeah.
Ungoro was. Because if you look at what they have there, they have the 1-drops in Raptor Hatchling and Jewel McCall. They have the 2-drops in Crackling Razor Maul, and they had a decent 3-drop in Terror Scale Stalker, right? But if you look at the other 2 expansions, KFT and Kobolds and Catacombs, there are no 1-drop or 2-drop minions for Hunter in either of those expansions. So those were 2 expansions in which Blizzard was like, we'll give Hunters tools, but they're either going to be a little bit heavier. So something like a Flanking Strike, which really good, but costs 4 mana, or they'll give them like a Candle Shot, which is
mid-range support, right? It's mid-range, late mid-range even support,
right? And then when they gave Hunters in each expansion 1 3-drop, it was Bear Shark and Cave Hydra, and neither of these are like, exactly, right? It's like they didn't.
By
give
the way,
them
I'm so happy we started off that Cave Hydra prediction so low, because everyone was so high on that card, and it does not do enough. And we were like, this card is not as good as like Bear Shark, and people are like, what?
Well, yeah, it also goes to how Hunters play, right? And right now their play style is to lose.
Lowest win rate class by far, the new warrior.
Bad. But oh god. But yeah, so what we're left, they took away a lot of the early tools. And look, is anyone that excited about a Fiery Bat?
Okay, and really, I want to emphasize this again, because I know you started off with the emphasis, but just in case people don't get it, they took away a lot of the Hunter's early game curve cards. We're talking literally like by the numbers, half.
Yeah. And we can even go into like the good force as well, Infested Wolf and Dispatch Kodo, right?
Yeah. They also Rat Pack, Zip Gunner, we're not even saying all of them. There's just so many. If you go through and actually look at all the cards, it blew my mind to just look at all these cards leaving.
They lose On the Hunt as well. Not a curve card, but once again, an early tool, right? Yep. And a really good one for Hunter, especially with Hunter's Mark, right? Yep. So now you can't Hunter's Mark on the Hunt, which was very helpful. So yeah, they lose all these tools, and KFT and Kobolds and Catacombs do nothing for them on turn 1 and turn 2 in terms of minions, right? They have secrets they can play, they have Candle Shot.
Yeah, and having secrets is not as good as you talked about. Cloak Huntress is gone. They don't have secret synergies anymore, except like your weapon.
Well, they have the Spellstone.
Oh, that's right. They have the Spellstone. Okay, I take that back. So, okay, half of the support is gone.
Yeah. So I don't know where Hunter is going to go, because in order to make a winning Hunter, you needed at least some of these cards, right? Like, I could identify a good Hunter deck, and they would have had a ton of these cards. So I don't know. Hunter is going to be in a scary place, especially.
It's Witchwood. Witchwood has the offering bonus. You don't know what cards are going to be in Witchwood, right? You have that Hunting Mastiff, which is a great mid-range Hunter card. You have a Duskhaven Hunter already, which is a 3-mana 2/5 stealth, which may be a 5/2 stealth depending on when you play it from your hand. Like, who knows? You add a 1-drop and a 2-drop to that, and it's not looking that bad with an offering bonus.
Maybe. It's just they're starting off. Yeah. Already a really bad spot, right?
You can tell what's going to happen to the Hunter just by Witchwood. I think this is one of those classes you could say that for, because it's so you're right. Hunter's in a scary place. If Witchwood is not good to Hunter, the next 4 or 5 months of Hunter is going to be awful. Yeah.
So Hunter is one of the big losers in the rotation, really huge, which makes me sad.
Yep. I guess I'll talk about Mage next really quickly. We talked about Volcanic Potion leaving. 3 mana, Volcanic Potion gone. Twilight Flamecaller, 3 mana, deal 1 damage. So not quite a volcanic potion, but still gone. And those are your big early game clears for Mage. And that's always like, I know Merps, you had a lot of trouble with it. I more just kind of accepted it as like, oh, it's Mage, they're controlling you. But they can't control anymore in the early game. Like, their control cards in the early game now are like Cone of Cold, which is 4 mana and like super anti-tempo, and Arcane Explosion, which not enough people draft in my opinion, and like Arcane Missiles and Frostbolt single target. Like, it's a lot weaker now than it used to be. And I'm not going to say whether that's right or wrong that this is happening, but it's definitely something that you should know as a player. Because the way to kill mages is back on the table. Flood the board in the early going. Get the mage down low enough before that Blizzard comes out, before that Flame Strike comes out and destroys you, right? That's back on the table, and that is a very good way to beat mage, because mages don't heal that well, and they don't usually have that many taunts, especially in class cards.
Yeah, and mages lose 2 of the most defining cards in their current playstyle. One is Firelands Portal, and we know that that's such a boogeyman. But second, and this card has become more and more important, Kabbalah's Tome, right? Like, Tome has been one of those cards in which it just really does win games. Like, the speed of the game and just sort of the need to high roll, and we talked about it a few times, has become more and more important. Like, Tome, I drafted like extremely high, and I know that
we rated low because of the RNG. I drafted pretty low. Like, I've been screwed by it way too many times.
I've been screwed by it as well, but it's also one of those cards in which I'm like, I will take the risk of it, right? In order to, and it's also one of those cards that I've just gotten beat by it way too many times.
Oh yeah, I mean, that's what a card like, with super heavy RNG is. You get beat by it a ton, and then you win with it not so much.
Yeah.
Like, that's how it is for good players.
Right. And then you're also losing something like Babbling Book, right? In which they get that early 1/1, and they also just get a spell out of it. And
but I mean, it's not about how these powerful cards that are leaving. It's Mage. They have other powerful cards that fill the gaps for these.
They do. It's just, so Tome is a great way for them to like replenish their cards and play the long game, right? And because they get spells out of it, they can immediately sort of respond. Or, they play Tome, slow down a little bit, and then you flood, and then they AoE.
I just like that Mage is getting less random, because they keep, I mean, who knows, right? They keep making more random cards for Mage, but at least you're like, the book and the Kabbalah's Tome are huge random elements in the Mage, and that's
I love it too. Right, and Servant of Yogg is leaving, so that's a huge random factor that is leaving.
I don't see it all that often anymore. I don't know though. Although they have Vex Crow coming in, and that'll be somewhat random, but not as bad. They're just minions.
Yeah.
And they're like mana controlled minions. Okay, enough about Mage. Like, that Mage definitely gets weaker. And just, if you say Firelands, right, Mage is getting weaker. But I think the Mage getting weaker from the lack of early board clear is so huge. Especially in a more curve-heavy meta. Like, Mages are going to have to build their curve. Okay. So, Paladin is next. Do you have anything to say on Paladin? I have literally nothing to say on Paladin.
No. So, I'll say this. Paladin came out of this, like fairly unscathed.
Yeah.
At least every class is going to lose some good cards. Some of the better cards that Paladin is losing is Rallying Blade, Silver Moon Portal. Ivory Knight is like meh, right? They lose
Silver Moon Portal is like meh. We have that at 105 right now. Like, it's not what it was when it first came out.
So the premium card they lose is Grim Street Protector. Right?
Yeah, that's the card. 161 on the tier list.
I will also say the archetype of a dude Paladin takes a huge hit because they lose Steward of Darkshire and Stand Against Darkness, right?
Yeah.
So the concept of dude Paladin, and we still have the level up, right? We still have
Crystal Lion.
We still have Crystal Lion. We still have
Life-Fuse Stegodon.
Life-Fuse Stegodon, exactly.
So it's still alive. It's just not super OP anymore.
Right, and the fact that you had these 2 cards to support, like, the more cards you have to support archetype, the more powerful that archetype is. You take away 2 of the things that, like, build upon that archetype. So Dude Paladin is going to be significantally weaker, right? Yep. But really, Paladins don't lose out on that much.
No. That's why you should be scared.
Yeah.
Because it's Paladin. Like, you put some powerful cards in it, and we know what Paladins can do in the arena.
Well, it also makes sense. These 3 expansions came after Paladins just like dominated for a long time, and Blizzard didn't like that, right? And so they want to be really careful with paladins afterwards. And this was sort of the result. And now you're getting rid of, and it's not so much like they lose nothing. Like Rallying Blade is a good card. Protector.
Yeah, you gotta look at it in the big picture, right? You're losing 300 cards. They've lost way less than what's 300 cards. Should be like a third of their power. They lost way less than a third of their power, or like even a quarter of their power.
You look
They've
at
lost like 5% of their power.
The importance of the cards that Paladin loses versus the importance of the cards that like Hunter loses, and oh my gosh, it's so disgusting.
And again, it's not just that they're losing the cards. These spots on the offering rates get replaced by existing cards. So you're going to see more of all the ridiculous Paladin cards you don't want to see, like Steed, like Vine Cleaver, like Unidentified Maul.
It's like, oh no, Rallying Blade goes away. But in that vacuum, a little bit of it goes to Vine Cleaver. Yeah. And you're just like, come on, man.
Okay. Priest, I have here, it's just, Potion of Madness, obviously. That's the one you play around sometimes, and that goes away. Dragonfire Potion goes away, so no need to play around that anymore. Those are pretty big, but the biggest one, I think, in terms of, Potion of Madness is the biggest one. It's such a stupid
Potion of Madness is the biggest one.
By far the biggest one. Yeah, fine. But the one that I love that is going away is Draconid Operative. It's about time. Because that's a very silly card for Dragon Priest. And the fact that it goes away, it does not kill Dragon Priest. There's still plenty of Dragon cards for Priest. It, like Merps was saying with Dude Paladin, it gives it a less support. And it kind of balances that kind of synergy out. So that you're no longer like, oh, I'm a Priest, I'm going to be a Dragon Priest, obviously. Now you're like, oh, I'm a Priest, did I get some good Dragon cards? If I did, then I'll be a Dragon Priest. Not just like every Priest should be a Dragon Priest because the upside is so big.
Right. But no, with Priest, it is just, look, we're talking about losing 3 expansions here. Really, Priest only cared about MSG because MSG was the expansion that made Priest like an actual threat.
They also lost the absence of Purify.
That is true. But okay, other than MSG, the only one I think we should care about is like Shifting Shade, right? Which
like these are not things you care about. These are just just naming powerful cards. Right? It's like Rallying Blade, right? You don't really care about it. It's just a powerful card.
But yeah, them losing Potion Madness has such a huge effect on the early game, in which you no longer have to make these decisions on turn 2. It's like, okay, do I want to lose the game?
Like, that's the difference, right? You shouldn't be thinking about moving into the next year of the Raven or whatever as like, which class lost powerful cards? You should be looking at it as, which powerful cards did they lose that changed the way I will play against this class? Or the way that I will draft for this class? And something like, I don't even remember the guy's name, that's how unimportant this guy is. Shifting Shade, right? Like, it's a 120 rated card. It's better for players who are not as good because there's some like random element to it, but like, whatever. You don't ever play differently because it exists or not. You don't ever draft differently because it exists or not. So it doesn't matter, right? Like, it's like Rallying Blade at least has that turn 3 thing, right? For Paladin, where Paladins can't do things on turn 3, and Rallying Blade is like, oh, I guess it could do Rallying Blade. Well, now it can still do Unidentified Maul. So you haven't really gotten rid of the fear, but you've lowered it a little.
Yeah, definitely. But no, totally agree with Draconid Operative, and also they no longer have Dragonfire Potion, right? So it's no longer, oh god, I have to fear the Dragonfire Potion on 6 and the Psychic Scream on 7. It's like, okay, it's a bit more manageable now. Maybe. Who knows?
You want to talk about Rogue?
Yeah, sure. So Rogue is also missing, they came out of it like decently, I'll say. Yeah. But they are missing some of their good tempo cards, right? So the big one is Shadow Strike, and you've mentioned that. Shadow Strike was something in which, Rogue didn't have that kind of removal because they had the really small removal, right? And then they had the really big removal.
Yep.
And Shadow Strike gave them this like middle option, which
it's so good that it's gone. Rogue shouldn't have that middle option.
Yeah, and it's just so mana efficient, which is Rogue-like. But yeah, I don't like them, like Rogues having the ability to have, an option for each sort of category, right? Small removal, mid removal, big removal. But other than Shadow Strike, it's not like they're losing any sort of archetype, right? And they're losing some good cards, but nothing major. If we just want to quickly list some good cards, they're losing Undercity Huckster, right?
Yeah, so here's what I'm saying. I'm going to disagree that they're not losing like a kind of archetype, because I think they kind of are. It's just not really an archetype that we think of as an archetype. So first of all, Jade is gone, which which is
Yeah.
very meaningful now in 10.4, right? Think about all the Jade Rogues that you've seen. Like Jade
Well, I see
Shamans
Jade
also,
Shamans. I
yeah.
don't. No.
Well,
I
that's because you
never
just
see
see
Jade
less
Rogues.
rogues. But yeah, okay, fine. But still, it's a
I
thing.
never see Jade Rogues.
It's a thing. Just it's something not to worry about. But even Undercity Huckster, to add a random card to your hand,
Yeah.
like add that with Swashbuckler also going away. Add a random card to your hand. Add that with Journey Below, discover a Death Rattle card also going away, and then all of that could be moved by Peddler, right? Ethereal Peddler, which is reduce the cost of cards.
Away also makes me happy because whenever you get Peddler in another class and you play it,
oh my god, yes,
But
you know what? You're not going to get Peddler in another class anymore because the tri-class Discover cards are going away, and it's going to be much harder to get Peddler in another class.
Right, except when druids get it from like the forge or something, right? Yeah.
So yeah, I mean it happens. But these cards are all like RNG, like very RNG focused. They're Discover, so they kind of blunt it a little, but it creates this like, oh, rogues can do anything, like atmosphere, right? And you can't play against a class that can do anything. So now rogues are gonna freaking be like, hallucination aside, rogues are gonna be rogues. And that's very, very important. Because you have, like, think about the tri-class cards that you're also taking away. Like, it's going to be so much nicer to play against a rogue. You can actually anticipate what they're going to be doing and have it be effective a lot more. Like, it's good. This is a very positive direction to be moving the rogue by getting rid of this more problematic direction that, this 1 year of Old Gods, Karazhan, Gadgetzan has had.
I will say some of the fun will be taken out of Rogue when Shadowcaster rotates out, because that is a card in which I think we it just creates on a moment, right? And I don't think it's like an unfair card, but it is one in which the more I play with it, the more I'm like, damn, this is just a fun card. I will be sad to see that one gone.
That is not a fun card. I never play it. I always face it. It is not a fun card at all. It is like the opposite of a fun card. It's like, hey, look, I'm winning. There's not much you can do to destroy me. Oh, look, I'm dead. That's not fun.
Kind of. Also, I'm glad that Lotus Assassin is gone. That card is super good.
I mean, it's a fair card. I don't really mind
it's a fair
it
card
or not. But yeah, I mean, these are just normal things. Let's move on. We're running out of time. I want to talk about Shaman. I am very, very happy with what cards are leaving with the Shaman. Because as we all know, Shaman's one of the top classes right now, along with Warrior, for whatever reason. They've overtuned the micro adjustments. But here's what's going away with Shaman. 1, no more Jade. Yay. 2, no more Crackling Doom. Yay. 3, no more Adapt. No more, sorry, not Adapt, Evolve.
I was like, Adapt?
No more Evolve. Adapt is still here, but, Shaman, Adapt, whatever. No more Evolve. Unstable Evolution is still here, but Evolve is gone. Master of Evolution is gone. Those are RNG. They do not favor good players. They are also just horrible. Like, I hate the card Evolve. I've always been a hater of the card Evolve. So you are, like, destroying all sorts of Shaman archetypes, right? Like, left and right now in the arena, just with everything moving away. Shaman's going to be, like, back to the basics kind of stuff. And on top of that, other powerful cards are going away. Like, Flame Wreath Faceless is going away. Thing from Below is going away. These are all ridiculously powerful cards.
Hammer of Twilight.
Hammer of Twilight's going away. That's rated 150. It's one of our overpowered cards. These are all insanely good cards that are all going away. And to add insult to injury, besides Jade Lightning going away, Stormcrack is also going away. So Shaman, we all know now if you play against a Shaman, you should just expect them to deal 4 damage to you. Because they have too many cards that deal exactly 4 damage. Now, all that's left is Tidal Surge, which is not a great removal because it's 4 mana, 4 damage, essentially.
Yeah.
And then they're out of 4. So what do they have left? 2 and 3. Maybe Lava, whatever, for
Lava
5.
Burst.
Yeah, maybe Lava Burst for 5. And then they have to make up the rest with the Totem for spell damage and whatever.
Well, they have Crushing Hand.
But Crushing Hand is a hard removal.
Right.
Like, effectively, it's a hard removal. So again, that whole middle area kind of opens up against the Shaman. It's going to be, like, Shamans are hurt. They are very heavily hurt by all these good cards leaving. And they need some very good cards coming in to build it up. And whatever good cards do come in, that's going to be their new archetypes. Because they're out. All their old archetypes no longer exist anymore. They're just a normal class at this point.
Yeah, so this is, and I think what you just said is very important. They're going to be a normal class because shamans have been defined by all these cheat mechanisms, right? And they cheat out a 7/7 for 4 mana, right, on turn 4. That's like it's really hard for you to take care of it unless you have a hard removal at that point. Evolve sort of like they cheat out tempo and it's random, right? So it's like 2 things that you hate. Master of Evolution as well is just one of those things in which it cheats out tempo plus it is completely random. Thing from Below, you can cheat out tempo. They're also missing like Maelstrom Portal, which is just one of those things that's so annoying.
Another good card.
Another good card. And a lot of Shaman's cards, like a lot of what we have been talking about, like Jade Claws, Flame Wreath Faceless, Stormcrack, these are really good cards. They also lose Finders Keepers. So they also lose ways for them to get these cards, which are either overstated or have insane initiative.
I don't think there's a big debate here. Shamans hurt the most by this rotation.
By far the most.
Yeah. You can talk about Hunters being hurt a lot potentially or whatever, but they're missing Curve. They can get Curve back, especially with this expansion, especially with 10.4 and how Curve works in 10.4 drafting. But Shaman's got nothing. I don't know how Shamans are even going to function. Like, they need good cards in Wildwood. And it's so weird to say that about the #1 class in the arena right now.
Right. But it should, once again, the fact that we have told you guys what Paladins are losing, it's kind of scary, right? And what they're left with, it's like, oh, by the way, Ungoro, in one expansion, Paladins gained Vine Cleaver and Steed. So just think about that versus what they are losing in these 3 expansions.
Yeah.
Anyways.
So one hint for what Shaman may be getting in Wildwood is Witch's Apprentice. 1 mana, 0/1 beast with a taunt, battle cry, add a random shaman spell to your hand. Whatever. It's not that great. Like, people compare it to
Babbling Book.
Yeah, people compare it to Babbling Book and Swashbuckler. 0/1 taunt is not as good.
As a 1/1.
Yeah, a 1/1 is a curve card, and really you don't have 1-drops. That's a pretty big tempo gain. This 0/1 is like better for late game to like block something, but it's like more difficult to use. And you're also a shaman. You already have a totem. Like,
yeah, no, I definitely agree. All right, so Shamans lose a ton. Let's talk about Warlock.
Yes.
And Warlock is a class in which it's kind of analogous to Priest in that MSG was the one that gave him so many tools, right? So once again, Warlocks are going to be missing some key removal. Like, yes. I think this is really the point that we want to make. So they're missing Felfire Potion. They're missing Blast Crystal.
That's so huge.
That is so huge.
You now don't have to worry about hard removals for Warlock until turn 6.
Yep. So they're missing Blast Crystal Potion, and also just them having a hard removal, period, right? And
I mean, they have a Siphon Soul still, right? Like, that's turn 6. They've always had a hard removal. It's just, Siphon Soul.
Also, Cabal Chemist into Blast Crystal Potion.
Oh my god.
No more of those. No more. It won't hurt you anymore. And Doom, right?
Yes.
So we're missing Felfire Potion, Blast Crystal Potion. We're missing Doom. Like, a lot of Warlock's ability to remove you from the board.
Don't
which,
forget
if you think,
Abyssal Enforcer too. I know we see it less often, but
we see it less often. But if you think back a year or two, a year and a half, that was something that Warlocks were not known for, right? Like, now you look at Warlocks, of course they can remove you from the board. But back then, that was
when we were
not
drafting. You can't. There was a whole period where you couldn't take these double-sided board clears as Warlock because there were too many of them, and you were going to get stuck with 6 of them in your hand. That's how bad it's gotten. And so this is, it's a very good rollback, I think. Yeah.
So we're going to be missing those. And you talked about Abyssal Enforcer. It's just one of those things where Warlocks will have to play a little bit differently, and you're going to approach the matchup a little bit differently as well, because you're going to be missing these powerful tools.
Keep in mind, they still have to follow. They still have Shadow Flame. They still have Twisting Nether. You're not going to change your fundamental approach, but you may hedge your bets a little differently because you now like they don't have guarantee like they stopped Hellfire. Like they don't have the guaranteed double-sided board clear anymore. Now it's like you play it like you play against the normal class.
Right. And it is important that we still talk about Felfire Potion and Blast Crystal Potion because they are a little bit different, right? Like Blast Crystal is that hard removal.
Oh God, I'm so glad Blast Crystal's gone.
Yeah. And Felfire, it's like, Defile, you can try to play around it, and it requires a little bit of like nuance and setup. And Felfire is just consistent, right?
Yep. All right. And finally, we're at Warrior, the second best class in the current meta, traditionally the worst class ever. They're losing a bunch of good cards, but I don't really want to talk about the good cards they lose because it's Warrior. They have a ton of insanely good cards. Any cards they lose are going to be good cards. It's not going to affect the Warrior that much as you may think, because if you like start reading out the cards they're losing, it sounds like they're going to die. Like, it's just a list of like a whole ton of freaking great cards that we rate above like a 130. So I'm not going to do that. Because none of it really matters. Because the remaining cards that the Warrior has in the arena are also really great. And they're going to fill in the gaps when it comes to the offering rates. The one big thing that goes away is Fool's Bane. So if the Warrior is on the board, you don't have to worry about dying instantly by just them clearing your side of the board. Warriors no longer have effectively a single-sided board clear. They're going to get a lot of double-sided board clears now, which is an interesting development. So Warrior's definitely going to be switching in Wildwood. But Blazing Longsword is gone. Fool's Bane is gone. Those are the big ones. Also, as a side note, if you're trying to make Pirate Warrior, N'Zoth's first mate, and
Bloodsail Cultist.
Yeah, Bloodsail Cultist is gone. But, like, it's Arena. You're not really making Pirate Warrior anyway.
Right. I would say the one to add to that is Ravaging Ghoul, right?
Yeah.
Very good.
It's true. But they're adding different ways to deal double-sided damage. So it kind of, like, replaces the Ravaging Ghoul's, like, role. Even though, like, Ravaging Ghoul, the power level is what's missing. But again, I'm not worried about Warriors missing power level when it comes to cards. They're just going to get more cards that are really powerful. And they already have other cards that are really powerful. So, in terms of how you play against the Warrior, just like be less afraid of stuff like Fool's Bane or Blazing Longsword. That's all.
Right. There's a difference here because if you look at something like Priest losing Potion of Madness versus Warrior losing Fool's Bane, both are losing really, really good card, but Priest has nothing that is equal to the power level of a Potion of Madness that can like even begin to replace it, right? And has that effect at that early point in the game. Warriors, like, yes, Fool's Bane is a really good weapon, but a lot of their weapons are all really, really, really freaking good. And once again, it is taking up, like, the weapon slot, right? So,
yeah. But see, I would draw a distinction there, because I think of Fool's Bane as the same as Potion of Madness. In terms of providing the Warriors something they can't do with any other card. It's just not part of their archetype. That is the single-sided board clear I was talking about.
It is a board clear, but I think so. If you look
it's a single-sided board clear. There's no other Warrior single-sided board clear.
Like, I think, and that's why I compare it with like the Potion of Madness. I think there are similarities there, but in terms of like exactly what they lose, like I think Priests lose more by losing Potion of Madness than Warriors lose by losing Fool's Bane. Even though these are like two super premium cards on both sides.
Okay. Yeah. Anyway, that's the rundown. Anything else you want to add for this this transition into the Year of the Raven? We've covered Curve, which is going to be bolstered. 4 3s are turning into 3 4s. We're losing 5 damage stuffs. We're losing double-sided 2 damage with the Murloc. Except we still have Primordial Drake, so that's just like, reduce it. Don't pretend it's gone away. We're losing the Kooky Chemist as a dominant force. No more tri-class discoverers, and then we went over each of the classes. Anything else or something you want to say to wrap this up, to finish our 2-hour podcast?
No, I think that's it. Like, this is something in which you don't have to remember all of this, but like remember sort of the takeaways and like for these classes, what they are losing, like general abilities and what they are sort of not able to do as well anymore. Mm-hmm. So for hunters, they're just not able to establish themselves in the early game, right? Like tempo-wise, that well. I don't know what the expansion will hold, but you cannot replace everything that the hunter loses in the early game in one expansion, right?
No.
That is just.
I mean, you can, but you would have to have like every card in the expansion.
Realistically, it would have to be like the
Yeah.
best hunter expansion in any expansion period,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, in order to make that up. So I think that we're not going to see that. And with Paladin, it's like they don't really need to gain much to be.
To be fair, they haven't gained much, and the cards revealed so far. It's been pretty crappy for the Paladin.
Right. No, and I agree. Right. But with Paladin, it's like, wait, you're not losing much.
Yeah, losing almost nothing.
So you don't really have to gain much in order to keep at least the same power level.
I think they're already gaining in power level just by raising the rest of their cards' offering rates. Like they haven't lost anything. They've actually gained more. Witchwood is only going to make them worse than if Witchwood doesn't happen. Like Witchwood actually has to actively make the average worse for Paladin to keep them at the same level.
And for a class like Shaman,
oh god,
they are just getting absolutely wrecked. And this will also impact how your runs go. Because right now, when you go to 10, 11 wins, you're going to see a Shaman, and you're going to see the high roll Shamans, right? And this is exactly what you don't want to see. The Shaman that has the insanely good cards, and also, even if you think you can beat them, they can play all of their like evolves, right? They can play like their sort of cheat mechanisms and just take a win from you, even if your deck is absolutely insane, right? So that is going to be no more. The sort of high rolling Shaman is going to be no more. And I think we can all appreciate that.
Yay. I mean, like, to be honest, I've been waiting for this rotation for such a long time because there are so many problematic cards that are going away with this rotation. I'm glad it's finally here. And it's not that there's not other problematic cards that are still in there. I think it can be argued that the more problematic cards are the ones that are not being rotated out, and that Blizzard makes more and more problematic cards in an effort to keep the game more and more interesting, at least for Arena. But still, it's going to be a little bit of a return to form, and I am very excited by the curve becoming a bigger thing. 10.4 was already very good to the curve, just that change in itself. And with this rotation, and OG as the main curve set being rotated out, because OG was a really crappy main curve set. Like, whatever Witchwood is going to be better than OG. And it's not going to have the other two, the Karazhan and the Mean Streets of Gadgetzan, dragging it down, because those are all gone. So we're going to be looking good curve-wise. And that's always... I like the structure of at least having the option to curve, and then deciding whether you want to build a curve deck or not, rather than just, like, letting the dice land where they may. Or like when curves only started on 3, that was really weird, because for the most part that becomes an answer response meta, threat and response meta, which is the equivalent of saying, did you win the RNG of grabbing your answers or your threats, either both in the draft and in the game? If yes, win. If no, lose. Like, horrible meta. So we're going to at least be moving into a more interesting meta. Like, however overpowered Rush is, it's at least interactive. Okay, so that's it from us. We have broken the 1 hour mark officially. Thank you guys so much for listening. The next episode won't be so long, but this expansion, unlike the last one, we will do a card-by-card rundown for all Witchwood cards sometime between the card dump and the final and the release of the expansion. So you guys can stay tuned for that as well. But until next week, this is ADWCTA.
This is Merps. Get hyped, guys. See you around.
All right. We are playing an Arena, for those that are wondering.